In Washington, D.C., there's a big pride parade. There are pride parades everywhere, throughout the entire country, throughout the entire world. It's throughout the Western world at this point. During one of these pride parades, there was a man running down the street. He appears to have had breast implants or some kind of chemically induced breasts or something, and he ends up twerking on a policeman. So you can see him there. He's strutting in front of a sign that says European Union for LGBT plus rights. He appears to have something like breasts, and there he is twerking on a cop. And there's someone waving the European flag. Oh, and the people waving the European flag seem to be very young. And there are plenty of kids there out in the crowd. And the man with the breasts twerking on the cop, and the cop just runs away. In a more sane age, the cop would put this guy in cuffs and take him either to jail or more likely a lunatic asylum and say, something's going wrong in your life, buddy, and we got to figure it out so that you don't do stuff like this. But the guy in the street with some kind of augmented breasts had demon horns on, like little devil horns. And you do notice this a lot. There's a lot of overlap here between the radical sexual revolutionary stuff and demonic imagery, sinful imagery, satanic imagery. And I imagine that the activists on the sexual revolution side will just write this off and say, oh, we're just being provocative. Oh, it's not, we don't really believe in the devil. Oh, we don't really, but how come this imagery keeps cropping up all the time? And it's so brazen now, and it's so obscene. If obscenity laws have any meaning whatsoever, and we still have obscenity laws on the books, if they have any meaning whatsoever, a demon horn wearing dude with breasts wearing a thong jiggling on a police officer in front of kids, I think has to count, right? And if that doesn't count, we don't effectively have obscenity laws anywhere in this country or throughout the Western world. In Idaho, there was a pride parade. This took place in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Police arrested 31 members of a group called Patriot Front. This group, the 31 people in Patriot Front, were found in a U-Haul vehicle near the pride parade, and they were just there in their vehicle, but the cops said it is clear to us, based on the gear that the individuals had with them, the stuff they had in their possession, the U-Haul with them, along with the paperwork that was seized from them, that they came to riot downtown. So notice here, this group, Patriot Front, Fed Front, I don't know, I haven't really heard very much about this group, and whenever I hear about it, it's in this way that seems to be actively promoted by the establishment media, and I'm sort of skeptical that the group even exists beyond something thought up in Langley or Quantico. But regardless, let's say it is real, this far-right radical group, they were arrested for potentially planning to riot. BLM very often doesn't get arrested for actually rioting and burning things down and killing people. But this far-right group gets arrested for potentially planning to riot. So for a potential crime. At a pride parade where real crimes are taking place. At the very least, the crime of obscenity. At the very least, the crime of public disturbance. At the very least, the crime of indecent exposure and indecent exposure toward kids. There are kids at all of these pride parades. And yet the cops never arrest the weirdos like the demon horn wearing guy with his breasts hanging out, jiggling on a cop in front of kids. They never arrest those guys for committing actual crimes. But then they rush in, we got to send in the SWAT team, we got to send in the FBI to go arrest this minor right-wing group that may or may not be real in the first place for potentially. I'm not defending this group, if it's real or not, Patriot Front. Fine, you arrest them if you want, if they've committed a crime. But how come we focus all of the resources in law enforcement on punishing right-wing people for crimes that they may be committed, maybe didn't commit, maybe plan to commit, maybe don't. But we don't ever punish leftists who are actually committing crimes in the same place at the same time doing the same thing. Doesn't make sense. Seems to me we should focus more of our resources on arresting the groomers, on arresting the weirdos, the people. Frankly, it would be for their own good. I don't think the guy in the demon horns with the boobs hanging out, I don't think that guy is living his best life. I don't think he's got it all together. I don't think he's flourishing, okay? But we have said, no, that is flourishing. That's what we should all want. Fox freaking News is saying if your kid is 2 years old and can't even speak yet, you've got to trans your kid. And in that Fox segment, by the way, the mother, would you believe it? The mother has a book deal talking about all this. This creepy mother who says, oh yes, before my son could speak, he told me that he is totally a boy and not a girl, which she obviously is. Even Fox News promoting that stuff. All of that is totally fine. But we've got to focus all of our attention on the threat from the far-right radical insurrectionists. Goodness gracious, if we don't stop them, a Midwestern dad might drink a Coors Light in the Capitol Rotunda. Could you imagine? It brings me back to this question, is Pelosi right? Is Pelosi right when she says transvestitism is what America's all about? No, not if you ask the majority of Americans, not if you ask the founding fathers, they'd be rolling over in their graves. But there is something weird about America with this issue. The Western world broadly but it's America in particular has this. You remember the French, a few months ago, Macron said, we don't want wokeness. Wokeness is very bad. It's a cultural export from America and it's poisoning everything. We don't want it. We don't do wokeness. In France, which is one of the most left-wing places in the Western world. But they said, we don't want that. So what is it about America? I think it's that in America, there is this idea that you can be whatever you want to be. In America, it doesn't matter how you're born, what you look like, what your skills are even. Every child born in America can be the president of the United States. Any child, if he really puts his mind to it, can be an astronaut. You can be anything. And there's something nice about this idea in America. But it isn't true. There's a lot of freedom in America. There's a lot of freedom of mobility. There's so much opportunity. Go west, young man. Go strike your fortune. There is some truth to the American dream. But that's not absolute. You can't do whatever you want to do. I will never be a basketball player. I never could have been a basketball player. I was born with certain limitations. Okay, when you are a child of the Mezzogiorno of southern Italy, okay, and you're not 6'7", and you're not from the most athletic race of people in the world, then you're just not, I'm never going to play in the NBA. That was a limit that I had, okay? But I've got other limits beyond that. I've got limits of nature, of biology. I'm never going to be a girl. I'm never going to be a woman. I can really want to be a woman, but I can't be. There are natural limits here. The reason that America worked for so long is because we had this really inspirational idea of you can do pretty much whatever you want to do, but we had a culture, a tradition of limits, and we had a religion, Christianity, that told us that we have responsibilities, that we have a moral order that we have to respect, we have natural boundaries we have to respect, and we've got to give ourselves over to God's will and cooperate with His grace. As America has become less Christian, still religious, but it's less Christian, it's become much more leftist, transgenderist, individualist, whatever. All of those limits are gone. And it's just like, you can have beautiful poetry when you respect a few simple boundaries, meter, rhyme, really basic stuff. When you get rid of those boundaries, you get slam poetry, which is the death of art. It's the worst thing ever. That's where we are. I think this might be the issue. We need to recognize that Nancy Pelosi's idea that the great thing about America is dancing around in drag. The great thing about America is the freedom, quote unquote, to dance around like a transvestite. No, that isn't it. We know that that's not it. We know that's not what the founding fathers thought. We know that's not what anybody thought in this country until 5 minutes ago. For goodness sakes, transvestitism was illegal in much of America for much of the 19th century and parts of the 20th century, including San Francisco. So we know that's not what America's about. If your idea of America is that that's what America's about, then your idea is wrong. We need to go back to history, to our tradition, to our actual culture, and say, wait, where did we go wrong? When you're twerking on the cops and grooming and transing the kids, something has gone wrong. I'm so glad you liked that clip. Now, ring, ding, bing, bada bada bing bong, subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show. Get all of the notifications for every single video. Then head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever, MySpace, I don't care, wherever. Subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show. Leave a 5-star review. We'll see you next time.